If you haven't been to an Apprenticeship Navigator webinar series before, as I said, welcome. This is the sixth in a webinar series called Apprenticeship Navigator. Today we'll spend about 15 minutes in presentation mode. It'll be all about youth apprenticeship, or what we're going to call pre-apprenticeship. All Apprenticeship Navigator meetings are 15 minutes in length. They are all recorded. They are all published on our YouTube channel and our website. If you want to go ahead and double duty and see all of them now, you can scan that QR code at the top of the screen, and it will take you to the ones that have already been published. At the conclusion of the 15-minute presentation, we will have Q&A. You are welcome to hold your questions during the presentation, or you can go ahead and type them in the provided communication tab. All the webinars, as I said, are recorded, but the Q&A portion is not. All right, we will move along then. I am Shelley Logan, and I am with Workforce Strategies Group and run the, okay, I've just gotten a note that chat is disabled, so y'all just get to hold your questions. Thank you for whoever sent that to me. I'm Shelley. I'm with Workforce Strategies Group. We want to give you a quick review of Apprenticeship Navigator. Specifically with Apprenticeship Navigator, we focus on registered apprenticeships. Those are called RAPs for the Registered Apprenticeship Program. You may hear us use several acronyms today. The RAP fulfills workforce needs by preparing individuals for skilled trades through paid on-the-job learning, or as we call OJL, sometimes OJT. And then it is also filled with related technical instruction called RTI. You can see all the good reasons to the right of the screen of why employers and people enjoy apprenticeships and why they're coming back to be a standard in our workforce development pipeline. A quick review also, while there are thousands of apprenticeships available, all of which we can discuss and potentially even implement pretty quickly. The 6 here are currently active here in our region at both Lanier Technical College and North Georgia Technical College. Usually your technical college is what's called an apprenticeship sponsor, which takes a lot of the work off of the employer, or the red tape, as we like to call it, taking that work off the employer. Each apprenticeship is various lengths. The ones that we have here on the screen are all 2 years in length. They're all USDOL registered. An apprentice is your employee, a full-time employee, and a part-time student, and completes on-the-job learning while being that part-time student. Today, we have experts with us. We are so proud and happy to have Danny Mitchell and Jeffrey Johnson with us both. Please turn on your microphones if you will. We want to welcome you. They both are what we're going to call our apprenticeship experts. Titles are program managers and pathway coordinator, but we're going to go with experts because that's who you are to us today, and we're very happy to have you. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you for having us. I appreciate it and glad to be here.
Absolutely. All right. So, you know, we talk about apprenticeships, and I think we've gotten pretty well versed in our area here in Region 2 about apprenticeships and what they are. I just gave a very simple, quick overview, but I did want to ask you, Jeffrey, if you would please give us a true definition of what a pre-apprentice is.
So, a pre-apprentice is someone who is enrolled in the short-term program, and that program basically is created to help that individual transition into a registered apprenticeship program. So, the basis of pre-apprenticeships are there to help that person prepare for that next level, prepare for that registered apprenticeship program. In the pre-apprenticeship program, you'll take those foundational classes, that basic classes, the basic maths, basic whatever is needed to get you prepared for that next level.
All right, so that's pretty exciting. And I see the ages 16 to 24. Of
Yeah.
course, we've been working for years to have our manufacturers and trade-related companies to see the benefit and interest in employing work-based learning students. From what I see, this is going to amp that opportunity not only for the employer, up, but also ramp that opportunity up for these youth, whether they're in school or out of school. Apprenticeships obviously lead to full-time careers and pretty quickly, with a lot of skill, which sometimes means they are able to make more of a career-related wage pretty quickly than a hourly, non-career related wage. And they don't necessarily have to go to college, as we used to call it, and go into debt and all of that kind of thing. They are definitely still going to college, but it's not just your what we used to term as go to college, go into debt, and then find a career. We're turning that upside down, and from these pre-apprenticeships, we're taking that, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to be able to say we need a seamless transition for that work-based learning high school student that's in manufacturing in their junior and senior year, and so they can seamlessly go straight into an apprenticeship and not have a skip the beat or a stop or I don't know what I'm going to do after I graduate, right? And so this answers that question, doesn't it?
That's exactly what it is. That's the sole purpose of it, is to make it an easier transition for those students who know when you're in high school and you're the student that you kind of have the idea. The 4 year pathway is not really in my cards. The 2 year pathway is still kind of just out of reach. The pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeships allow those students to, as soon as you graduate, get into your pathway, get into your passion, become an employee, start making money, and start learning your whatever it is you choose to learn as soon as you graduate from high school. So it takes care of that. And like you said, you're not in debt. You're not in thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. This is an easier way, and you're still in your passion. You're still in your industry that you choose to be in, without all that debt to worry about as well.
Yeah, and I
Awesome.
think important to note, just to add on to that a little bit, when we look at the pre-apprenticeship programs, they're vetted through the companies that have a registered apprenticeship. So the training that they're receiving is valued from day one. So we oftentimes look at that opportunity for advanced placement from a pre-apprenticeship to an apprenticeship. But like you said, it's an onboarding opportunity for them to be successful day one, to be able to learn that job and have that career pathway.
All right. So, Danny, I want to capitalize on that statement. You said value from day one. So, my understanding is that the RTI, related technical construction, and OJL, on the job learning, that they may receive while they're a work based learning student, if they're a pre apprentice, may apply to their registered pre apprentice required hours.
Yeah, depending on, obviously it depends on what's in the work process schedule, but that's why we go through the training for the pre-apprenticeship and the work process schedule for the apprenticeship program. But as long as it's aligns, they're allowed to be able to get credit for that training as well.
Very good. So, a high school student in a work based learning program can be a pre apprentice. A high school student in a career tech ag program can be a pre-apprentice, and a student dually enrolled in high school and college can be a pre-apprentice. Yes?
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And as long as those programs are established, they have the agreement with, and they're aligned with the registered apprenticeship programs, like Danny just said, then yes, they could count. As a matter of fact, we were just at the CTAE statewide conference speaking about pre-apprenticeships there as well, encouraging them to, get the work-based learning students, their dual enrollment students, the CTAE students within this program, and allow it to help them and build their future.
Right. And so this would be an opportunity for not only employers that, already have registered apprenticeships to take advantage of this or create registered apprenticeships. As we said, there are thousands, but also to continue being on those CTAE and work-based learning advisory boards at their local high school, making sure that those courses at CTAE are aligning potentially with a registered apprenticeship they have, so that those RTI hours may count towards the registered apprenticeship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure I'm not getting too excited and
Oh,
adding
you're
things that I
absolutely
shouldn't.
right.
Right. Yeah, because realistically, what we're trying to do in a pre-apprenticeship and the apprenticeship program is align the capabilities for that organization and for them to get the training both in a classroom and reinforce it out on the job. So for us to go in there arbitrarily and develop training that doesn't support the organization would be foolish of us. So
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, then I wanted to point out, you said we're talking about, high school youth and 16 to 24. So it's obviously in school, high school youth, but also out of school youth. By the way, much easier to capture youth when they're in school versus out of school, but we do capture them on occasion once they're out of school. Georgia Mountains Works employers have been active participants in hiring youth that complete boot camps, is what we call them up in this area, or short-term training courses. Some of them were developed, by the technical college. Some of them were developed individually, things of that nature. Some of them by private trainers. So these have been in partnership with not only the employers, but the high schools. It just depends on who's driving. It might be the employer is driving a boot camp. It might be that a high school is. It might be technical college or a private training organization. So that's the beauty, of course, of Georgia Mountains Works, is all of these different types of partners working together. So the question now is, if I have, for example, I'm an employer and I say, "Ooh, I want this kind of boot camp, and it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks." And all these high school graduates that are in high school chose to go to it. And when they finish, if that training aligned with a registered apprenticeship, that means that boot camp or short-term training may align and count as hours towards their apprenticeship. Is that right?
As long as they have contacted us in between that to make it an established pre-apprenticeship program, then yes. And some of the as long as those if the pre-apprenticeship is established, and as long as that aligns with the registered apprenticeship program, then yes, some of those hours could count towards the RTI and the OJT.
And I think
Okay, awesome.
but it's important to note that we're not out there just developing pre-apprenticeship programs. I think you can look at it as we're working backward from an established program to find the talent development pipelines that are there and then create a training model through the pre-apprenticeship program that is able to get them successfully onboarded into an apprenticeship program. So Jeffrey and I spent a lot of time talking about K-12 partners and education partners and what we can and can't do in a pre-apprenticeship. And, we want to be able to find those successful employers that are already investing in their workforce to be able to continue that investment and see them scale.
Yeah, the hours that it takes to get these people trained as an investment to start with, creating the programs is definitely worth the investment, but I do appreciate your delineating those two. So does the timing is also important, obviously. Timing of asking y'all, making sure it aligns, things of that nature. Who asks y'all that? Should it be the employer themselves, the trainer? Who's the right person to give y'all a call?
I think we get approached by everyone, but at the end of the day, we're doing outreach right now to our partners, both for the local workforce boards and our education partners as well, to be able to align with those employers that are already interested in those things. And we get people interested almost daily, both apprentices and companies wanting to start programs at our Apprentice Georgia website. So we get a lot of leads from that. But I think it's important for us to reach out to our strategic partners that are already successful in these areas and lean on those partners that y'all have as well.
Well, I appreciate you doing outreach with us through this webinar today. We had an industry tour this morning, and I mentioned this and got a lot of raised eyebrows. So I'm not surprised you're getting contacted by a lot of different people trying to make this work. So if I'm an employer and I have some young people in one of these short-term training boot camps and it's approved by you and things of that nature, do I have to employ this person during their pre-apprenticeship or only once they become an apprentice?
Well, there's
Can they
no
be employed by me while if they're a 17-year-old and they haven't started working for me and they go to a short-term training, do I have to already employ them for them to apply those hours as a pre-apprentice?
no,
No.
and I
But it
think
does have to be approved as a pre-apprenticeship.
well, work hours and college credit hours aren't necessarily tied to the pre-apprenticeship program. We develop something that strategically meets those needs. Now, if somebody has taken dual enrollment classes outside of the pre-apprenticeship, they could possibly still apply. But we're trying to focus our efforts on developing the pathway of success for everyone. So we standardize that training model both in the pre-apprenticeship and the apprenticeship program so that the training they do does align. So and that's what we try to do, have the most efficient process for these young men and women going through the program so that what they're doing directly relates to that opportunity when they get out of high school, or if they're out of school youth when they get done with the training.
Very good. I got my answer. It's basically probably.
It all depends on the classes and everything else. But yeah, so
I know, Danny. I'm trying to make it a positive thing here. We're moving
it
forward.
is positive. I mean,
I know
honestly,
it.
we worked with an employer yesterday to do credit for training from somebody coming into the apprenticeship program, and we just have to make sure we align it and apply it uh, judiciously, so to speak, but equally across the board for all the programs and all the opportunities.
You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of when you have a registered apprenticeship, and this is my terminology, not necessarily TCSG's. You have a registered apprenticeship, and the RTI or the classes they're taking at the technical college for this registered apprenticeship are standard. They're in the books. This is what you take, right?
Yeah.
But the OJL and what they do on the job that aligns is customizable to a point. So that's kind of what it makes me think like this is a hard line. This is what it is, but also this portion of it may be customizable, may apply, may not, depending on how it is best for the student and the employer.
And that's what we talk to them, even from the apprenticeship side, because the structure that you're getting in the college, everybody's getting the same training, so to speak, but the on-the-job learning component, and the reason why, and which you look at a work process schedule, it doesn't say I have to operate this specific machine. It gives generalized areas so that the employer has the capability of training their equipment under that generalized area, but it's customizable, like you said. Employers see different focuses on different areas based off their needs as well.
Very good. All right, let's talk about more positive stuff. You'll remember in our webinar from this series, webinar number 2, we talked about funding. We talked lots of sources of apprenticeship funding. We focused a lot on the HOPE grant, WIOA, and HDAP, High Demand Apprenticeship Program. My understanding is that now TCSG has more funding that specifically applies to pre-apprenticeship. So tell me about that.
So that's part of the BlackRock Foundational Grant. That's where pre-apprentice and specifically construction and manufacturing have a chance to receive the grant. That's a $1,500 grant where 1,000 will go towards training and 500 can go towards supportive services, and that's anything that's pretty much a barrier from that individual completing the program. So that's a great graphic there, Shelley. You look at that. That's nice. Yeah, but the BlackRock Foundation grant that's definitely a great thing, and definitely there to help those individuals in construction and manufacturing.
Excellent. So $1,500 total,
Hmm.
separated into 2 parts there. I know that stipend kind of could pay for maybe transportation or childcare if that was an issue, some other things. The application for funding has to come as a timing thing, right? So any application for funding usually has around a 30-day window. In other words, don't start until you apply for funding
But
at least
don't
30
start.
days prior.
Yeah. We want to make sure, obviously, it's vetted, but Jeffrey, like I said, already does a phenomenal job, has reached out to you and several other constituents about doing these programs. So I think we want to make sure that it's kind of like if you're doing a business service contract, you want everything in place before you execute the contract. So we want to make sure all those are in place.
All right. And speaking of business services, and just so you'll know, that's some other terms for WorkSource Georgia Mountains.
Yeah.
So you all are familiar with WIOA funding, IWT, OJT, things of that nature through WorkSource Georgia that we talk about a lot. I believe this BlackRock funding may be able to be braided with WorkSource Georgia funding or WIOA money. So just be aware that that is a potential.
And you
Also, this whole
probably,
BlackRock thing and the pre-apprenticeship thing really applies so well with Georgia Mountains Works because we were, of course, not only about workforce development, but really about manufacturing and the trade careers. And this BlackRock funding applies only to manufacturing and construction. So it's a great marriage there for sure.
obviously the WIOA funding comes with constraints. obviously the eligibility pieces, and whether it's incumbent worker or on the job training, and or in this case, you're dealing with youth ages 16 to 24. If they have additional barriers to employment, you might be able to get work experience, but that's all based off of what Georgia Mountain's capabilities and funding are. We're not going to speak to that.
Sure, I understand. So what I take from that is with WIOA funding, there are often eligibility requirements, which I will say they're fairly flexible with making those work when they can. With this BlackRock funding, that same eligibility requirements do not apply. So you don't have to work as hard to figure out if it will or won't apply to that pre-apprenticeship. All right. A whole bunch of words. Lots of words about stakeholders and partnerships, curriculum and training, outreach, recruitment. All of these are important words. Tell me more, Jeffrey. What have we not thought about?
You're pretty much hitting the nail on the head here. I mean, for this to work, we need those partnerships with the employer. You need that basic the basic focus is the employer buy-in. We need them to believe and buy into this program to make it happen. They have to invest into their pre-apprentices to know that this is somebody that could be a long-term employee in the end. But it starts here, and it's worth the investment. It's somebody that you're giving them a chance to peek into that industry instead of having them, on board, getting all their paperwork. You're investing all this training, and then for them to realize, oh, maybe this is not it. They have that chance to do it in the pre-apprenticeship program, the short-term program, to see either this is the dream industry that I've always wanted to be into, or maybe there's another industry for me. So those partnerships are what we need with the K-12, with like yourself, that we need to make this program go. The curriculum and training, of course, that's letting that individual know that you're getting up-to-date training. You're getting exactly what the employer needs. This is not just something we're pulling out of the air. You're getting exactly what that employer is looking for. So you're becoming even stronger employee, a potential employee later on down the line. And of course, the outreach and recruitment, like you said, it's going to be tough. Like you said, you're having a tough time getting those out of school youth. And if we all on the same page as partners, or we're all on the same team, I think it'll be just a little bit easier for you.
And I would say not up there. I would add one thing though, and it's key on an apprenticeship, just like a pre-apprenticeship, is that engagement from the employer, that mentor, because I'd say you can learn what to do in a classroom, you can learn how to do it on the job, but the mentor provides that direct feedback to whether it's working or not, and it also provides that why they're doing it inside of that organization. So when we see a successful apprenticeship program, just like with the pre-apprenticeships, they have that leadership buy-in, and then they have that person dedicated to be able to see those young men and women have success.
Excellent. Yes, I will say we did our third webinar series all about the mentor. And of course, it was only so many minutes long. We could have done it for a whole day. There's so many nuggets there and inspirational stories of mentors that have really made a true impact on an individual, but also their company and community. All right. So to me, the takeaway here is that seamless transition, right? We know our employers are employing high school students. Awesome. Keep it up. We know our employers are working to have mentors. We know our employers, many of them already have active apprenticeships, if not are in process of getting them going. This is another tool that happens to come with some funding that provides that seamless transition for a youth, not only into your company so that they are established there, but also into a full-time career with skill. And we are very proud to bring this to you. I'm very excited that TCSG got this grant money and is able to facilitate it. I think the next steps are always don't wait, right? Because we always like to look at the ROI and study all the angles, but the real answer is get started, make the phone call, determine if it's applicable for you. Go ahead and set your timeline, whether the timeline is I'm going to call Jeffrey the week after July 4th, or I'm going to implement it the week after July 4th. Whatever it happens to be, because I will tell you summer will be over quickly. So you better jump on when you can, because it sounds like this is going to be an opportunity that's jumped on by a lot of companies. You have your contact information up here. We have both Danny and Jeffrey's email addresses below. You noted that you can contact them directly to start talking with them about how the memorandum of understanding between the employer for the pre-apprenticeship works. Also, you can contact Greg or me, and of course the technical colleges, Corey or Adam or Leslie, whoever it is that you work with regularly, and we encourage you to do that. We will now conclude this webinar and go to Q&A.